The rain came without warning. It was heavy, cold, and endless. The sky over the human colony city turned gray, and lightning cracked across the tall towers like white scars. People hurried under metal shelters, closing their doors, pulling curtains. Nobody liked to stay out in storms, especially not on the edge of District 9, where the wind smelled of metal and ash. But one figure stayed in the rain. She was small and fragile, her skin glowing faint blue under the downpour. Her clothes were torn, nothing more than thin fabric sticking to her body. Water streamed down her silver hair and across her delicate face. The woman lifted her hands, letting the rain fall on them as if trying to clean away something that could not be removed. She whispered something in a language no human would understand. It was a prayer, or maybe an apology, to her gods, to her people, to herself. Her name was Nira, and she was not human. Her species, the Illyrians, had once lived among humans in peace. But the war changed everything. The human empire had accused the Illyrians of betrayal, and soon soldiers came with fire and iron. Their colonies burned. Families scattered. And now, months later, one of them, this poor woman, was here on a human planet, hiding like a ghost. She stood in the street, trembling, while people behind windows stared. No one opened their door. No one offered help. They looked at her glowing skin and turned away. A child pointed from inside a bakery window. "Mama, look. She's shining." The mother pulled him back fast and drew the curtains. Nira looked down at herself, ashamed. She rubbed her arms hard, trying to wash away the glow, but it only shimmered brighter with each drop of rain. She whispered again, "Don't look at me. Please don't look." Her body was weak. She hadn't eaten for 3 days. She had run from patrols, hiding in alleys, sleeping behind trash containers. Her home was gone, her family missing. All she had left was the memory of her sister's voice saying, "Run, Nira, don't let them find you." Now, standing under the sky, she thought maybe it was better if she just stayed there and disappeared into the cold water. Maybe the rain could wash her pain away. Then a sound broke the silence, a soft, steady sound of boots splashing in puddles. Nira turned slowly. A man was walking toward her through the rain holding an umbrella. His coat was dark, his steps calm. Unlike the others, he wasn't afraid to approach her. His eyes were brown and serious, and a faint scar crossed his cheek. For a moment, Nira stepped back. "Don't come close," she said, her voice shaking. The man stopped a few feet away. "I'm not here to hurt you." His voice was gentle, low. "You'll get sick standing there." "I can't go inside," she said quickly. "They don't want me." He looked around. The street was empty. Windows shut tight. "Maybe not them," he said, "but I don't mind." He raised the umbrella a little higher and took one step closer. "My place is nearby. You can dry off there. Take a shower, get warm." Nira blinked through the rain. Why would you do that?" He gave a faint smile, tired but kind. "Because no one else will." The words hit her harder than the rain. She searched his face for lies but found only concern. His name tag, barely visible under the wet coat, read Eli Grant. Still, her heart pounded. "Humans don't help Illyrians." Eli looked down, silent for a moment. Then he said, "Maybe some don't, but I'm not like them." A gust of wind almost tore the umbrella from his hand. The storm was getting worse. He glanced at her again. "Please come before it gets bad." "You can shower at my place." For a long time she said nothing. Her mind screamed that this could be a trap. Many Illyrians who trusted humans were never seen again. But something in his voice, something honest, held her still. And she was so tired of running, so cold she could hardly stand. Finally she nodded. Eli stepped forward and placed the umbrella over her head. The sudden warmth of his nearness startled her. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't alone under the storm. They walked together down the street, water splashing under their boots. The buildings grew older, quieter. Lights flickered behind foggy glass. Eli didn't speak. He just kept walking, careful to keep the umbrella tilted her way. After a few minutes, they reached a small, lonely house made of rusted steel and wood. The lights inside were dim, but it looked safe. He unlocked the door and gestured her in. Nira hesitated on the threshold. The air inside was warm and dry, filled with the smell of metal oil and bread. For an alien, even that scent was strange and comforting. "You can sit there," Eli said, pointing to a chair. "I'll get you a towel." She sat carefully, afraid to touch too much. Her wet clothes dripped onto the floor. He returned with a large towel and handed it to her. Their fingers brushed. His skin was warm. Hers was cool and smooth like glass. He didn't pull away. She whispered, "Thank you." "You're welcome," he said simply. "There's food if you want." "I don't know what you eat, but I can't eat human food," she said quickly, shaking her head. "It makes my body sick," he nodded, understanding. "Then at least warm up. The shower's upstairs. You'll feel better." She looked toward the stairs nervously. "Shower, is it safe?" He gave a short laugh. "Safe as it gets. Just water and soap. No traps." Nira smiled weakly at the attempt to make her feel calm. She rose slowly, still clutching the towel, and went up the stairs. Each step creaked under her bare feet. The bathroom door closed behind her, and for a moment she just stared at the mirror. Her reflection startled her. Thin, pale, hair tangled, eyes sunken but glowing faintly. She touched the glass and whispered, "Is this still me?" Steam began to fill the room as she turned the water on. The sound of falling water made her tremble. It was loud, clean, strong. Nothing like the muddy rain outside. She stepped under it, gasping as warmth spread over her skin. For the first time since her home was destroyed, she felt something close to peace. Downstairs, Eli sat on the couch, staring at the rain through the window. His jaw tightened. Helping her was dangerous. The city guards could arrest him if they knew. But he couldn't walk past her in the street like everyone else had. He'd seen too much pain during the war, too many people left to die. He took off his wet coat and sighed. In his pocket was a small metal badge, scratched and bent. It was the insignia of his old military unit. He hadn't looked at it in months, but tonight he pulled it out. The letters were still clear. Human Defense Force, Unit 12. His stomach twisted. That unit had taken part in the Illyrian raids. He'd left before the worst of it, but the guilt stayed. Maybe this was his way to make things right. Upstairs, the shower kept running. Steam curled from under the door. Nira stood under the spray, eyes closed, letting it wash the dirt and blood from her skin. Her glowing patterns grew brighter, like stars under her skin. She didn't know that humans considered Illyrian glow both beautiful and dangerous. She just wanted to feel clean again. When she turned off the water, silence fell. She found a soft shirt folded on a chair, too big, clearly his. She hesitated, then put it on. It smelled like iron and soap. Downstairs, Eli looked up as she came down. The loose shirt fell to her knees, and her damp hair clung to her neck. She looked fragile but peaceful. He smiled gently. "Better?" She nodded. "It's been a long time since I felt warm." "You can rest here tonight," he said. "The couch is clean. No one will bother you." She looked at him, uncertain. "Why are you helping me, Eli?" He thought for a long time before answering. "Because I've seen too much hate. I'm tired of watching people suffer when I can stop it." Her glowing eyes softened. She almost believed him. But as she turned her head, her gaze caught something on the table. A small badge, wet and shining under the light. The same insignia burned into her memory from the war. Her breath stopped. That mark had been on the soldiers who destroyed her village. The ones who took her sister. Her fingers trembled. She looked at Eli again, her heart pounding. You were a soldier?" Eli froze. His hand went to the badge, hiding it quickly. "That was a long time ago." Her voice rose sharp. "You burned my world." His eyes widened. "No, I wasn't part of that. I left before it happened." She backed away, shaking her head. "You're lying." "Nira, listen." But she was already near the door, her hand on the lock, tears mixing with leftover rain on her cheeks. The warmth she'd felt moments ago turned into fear again. She'd walked into a human's home, one who wore the mark of her destroyers. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Red lights from patrol drones flashed through the windows. A robotic voice echoed faintly. "Scan in progress. Illegal alien presence detected in Sector 9. Eli cursed under his breath and moved to the window. "They're scanning this area. If they see you, they'll take you away." "I don't believe you," she whispered. He turned toward her, serious. "You can hate me later, but right now you have to hide. Please, Nira. Trust me once more." Outside, the lights grew brighter. The drone was hovering close. Nira hesitated, torn between fear and the small spark of trust she still felt. Finally, she stepped back from the window. Eli guided her into the hallway. "Stay here, quiet." They crouched together as the light passed over the window. Both held their breath. The sound of the drone hummed above the roof, then stopped. Someone had reported his house. Eli whispered, "They're coming inside." Nira's glowing eyes widened in terror. The warmth of the shower was gone now, replaced by the cold bite of fear. And for the first time, Eli realized helping her might cost him everything. Rain still fell outside, sharp and endless, tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. Inside Eli's small house, the air was thick with fear. The red light from the drone outside painted the walls in flashes, pulsing like a heartbeat. Eli peeked through the curtain. A human patrol vehicle had stopped on the street. 2 armed soldiers stepped out, their visors glowing. They were scanning every home on the block. Someone reported alien activity here, Eli whispered. His throat felt dry. They must have seen you in the rain. Nira pressed her back against the wall, her glowing skin dimming as fear tightened her chest. "They'll take me," she whispered. "They always do. I can't go back to the camps." He turned toward her. "You won't, I promise." She looked into his eyes, searching for truth. "You're a human soldier. Why would you help me?" He hesitated but didn't look away. "Because soldiers like me made this mess. I can't change the past, but maybe I can protect one life now." Outside, the soldiers knocked on the door next door, shouting something Eli couldn't hear. He moved quickly, pulling a floor hatch near the kitchen open. "Get in," he said. "What is that?" She asked, an old maintenance crawl space. "They won't find you there," Nira hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll stall them." She wanted to argue, but his voice was firm. He was calm, the way people are when they have decided to risk everything. Finally, she climbed down into the dark opening. The air below was cold and smelled of dust and oil. Eli lowered the hatch gently, covering it with a rug. A few seconds later, heavy knocking shook the door. "Open up, Human Defense Patrol." Eli's jaw clenched. He opened the door slowly. Rain and red light poured inside. 2 soldiers stood there, one tall and silent, the other younger, scanning a wrist device. "We're running a thermal check," the younger said. "There's a reading of non-human biosigns nearby." Eli kept his expression neutral. "Not here. Just me." The soldier stepped past him, sweeping a scanner through the room. "Name?" "Eli Grant. Engineer, District Maintenance." The soldier looked up. "Ex-military?" "Yes. Discharged 3 years ago." The man grunted. "Then you know what we're looking for." "An Illyrian female. Dangerous parasite species." Eli's stomach twisted. "Haven't seen one." The scanner beeped faintly near the kitchen. The soldier frowned. "What's below here?" "Water pipes. Heating system." "Open it." Eli hesitated just 1 second too long. The soldier's hand went to his weapon. "Now." He knelt and pulled the rug aside, lifting the hatch. Steam from the lower pipes hissed upward. The scanner light blinked red but then dimmed. The heat from the pipes masked Nira's body signature. "Just pipes," Eli said. The soldier stared at him for a long moment. "If you're hiding one of them, you'll hang for treason." Eli met his gaze. "If I were hiding something, you wouldn't be standing here talking." The man smirked, half amused. "Careful, hero. You still talk like a soldier." The taller one finally said, "Come on. The signal's moving east." They left, slamming the door behind them. Eli stood frozen, listening to their boots fade away. When the patrol vehicle finally drove off, he exhaled hard and knelt, opening the hatch. Nira crawled out slowly, her eyes wide. "I heard them. I thought they'd find me." "They almost did," he said quietly. She touched her chest. Her heart was racing so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Thank you," he nodded, sitting down heavily on the floor. The adrenaline still shook his hands. "You should rest. But not here. They'll be back to double-check later." Nira sat across from him, wrapping her arms around her knees. "You could hand me over." "You'd be safe." Eli looked up. "Do you think I care about safe anymore?" She said nothing. Her glowing eyes softened. "You risked your life for me." He shrugged lightly. "I've done worse things. Maybe this balances it a bit." Lightning flashed outside. For a moment, their faces were lit in silver light. One human, one alien. Both tired, both marked by war. Later that night, when the rain had softened, Eli prepared a small heater in the corner. The soft hum filled the silence. Nira sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket he found for her. She spoke quietly. "When I was small, my father said humans and Illyrians were like 2 branches of the same tree. But the tree burned." Eli listened. "What happened to your family?" She stared into the heater's orange glow. "They were taken. Soldiers came in the night. We didn't even have weapons. My sister pushed me out a window. I ran into the forest and never saw them again. Eli lowered his head. I'm sorry, her voice trembled. You say it like you mean it. I do, she looked at him again. You said you were a soldier. Did you ever kill? He didn't answer right away. His eyes were distant. Yes, I did. Not civilians, but others. Too many. Then why help me? Because I'm tired of being the monster. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The heater hummed between them like a small heartbeat. Hours passed. Outside, the storm finally broke. A soft gray dawn began to rise. Eli went to the window, scanning the street. Empty. The patrol was gone. Nira spoke from behind him. You should have let me go. They'll come again. He turned, his face set. If you walk outside now, you'll die. I can hide you for a few days. After that, I'll find a way to get you off-world. Her eyes widened. Off-world? That's impossible. Not impossible, he said. I know people, smugglers, they still owe me favors. She stood slowly. Why would you do that for me? He gave a small smile. Because maybe you remind me of someone I couldn't save. Nira's throat tightened. She wanted to ask who, but his face told her not to. Some pain was better left quiet. The next morning, Eli stepped out to buy supplies. The city was waking up, lights flickering on, vendors setting up. He pulled his hood low, avoiding eye contact. He bought canned food, water filters, and spare power cells. When he returned, the house was silent. Nira? He called softly, no answer. His chest tightened. He checked the rooms, empty. The towel, the blanket, all gone. He ran to the door, scanning the street. Rainwater dripped from the roofs, forming silver rivers down the gutters. Then he saw her, at the far end of the block, walking barefoot, her silver hair visible even in the gray light. Damn it, he muttered, running after her. Nira walked with her head down, heart heavy. She couldn't stay. She'd already caused enough danger. Every human she met turned to hate or fear sooner or later. She couldn't let Eli get arrested because of her. She turned into a narrow alley, moving fast. But then she stopped. 3 soldiers were scanning the area ahead. She froze. One of them looked up. Hey, you there! Nira's pulse exploded. She turned to run, but slipped on wet ground. Her knee hit the pavement. The soldier raised his weapon. Stop, alien fugitive. Before he could fire, Eli appeared from nowhere, slamming the soldier against the wall. The other 2 turned, shouting. He grabbed Nira's hand. Run! They dashed through the alley, gunfire cracking behind them. Bullets hit metal walls, sparking bright flashes. Nira stumbled, but Eli pulled her forward. This way! They burst out onto an old service bridge. Below them, a river of wastewater roared. Nira gasped. We're trapped! Eli pointed to a maintenance hatch near the edge. Down there! They climbed inside as shots rang out above them. The narrow tunnel was dark, dripping with rainwater and rust. They crawled through it until the sounds faded. Finally, they stopped, panting. Eli leaned back against the wall. That was close. Nira's hands shook. You could have been killed. So could you. She stared at him, breathing hard. Why didn't you just let them take me? He looked at her in the dim light. Because I meant what I said last night. I'm done watching people suffer. She didn't answer, but the tears in her eyes said enough. Hours later, they reached an old power station at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, but the inside was dry. Eli started a small generator, lighting up dusty rooms full of old tools. This will do, he said, at least for tonight. Nira looked around, still trembling. You shouldn't have come for me. Eli turned to her. Maybe not. But if I hadn't, you'd be dead. Her gaze dropped. Humans don't save Illyrians. Not anymore, he walked closer, voice calm. Then maybe it's time someone started again. For a moment, they just looked at each other, 2 survivors of opposite worlds, standing in the silence of forgotten machines. Night came again, bringing new rain. The old roof leaked in places, and water dripped slowly into metal pans. The sound was gentle, almost soothing. Nira sat near the wall, knees pulled close. You think they'll stop looking for me? Eli shook his head. No, but we'll stay ahead of them. She smiled faintly. You make it sound easy, he chuckled. Nothing about this is easy. But I've seen worse odds. She tilted her head. You sound like a soldier again. Old habits. The faint warmth between them grew, fragile but real. She could almost forget what he'd been. Almost. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed something half buried under his gear. A small military badge, dented and scratched. The same insignia she had seen before. Her heart went cold. You still carry that? He looked at it, surprised. It's a reminder of what? The war you started? His eyes darkened. Of the people I failed to save. Silence stretched between them. I want to believe you, she said softly. But every time I see that mark, I remember fire. Eli nodded slowly. Then let me earn your trust. How? He looked at her with quiet determination. By getting you out of here alive. The rain didn't stop that night. It whispered over the roof of the old power station like a voice that refused to sleep. Inside, faint blue light from Nira's skin mixed with the orange flicker of the heater. Eli lay against a wall staring at the ceiling pipes. He couldn't tell if the sound outside was thunder or footsteps. Nira sat near the corner, knees pulled close, wrapped in the same gray blanket. Her eyes kept drifting toward the badge resting beside Eli's pack, the mark of the Human Defense Force. The symbol that had turned her world to fire. She wanted to ask him again, why keep it? But her throat felt tight. Instead, she watched him in silence, wondering how a man who once wore that mark could also risk his life for her. At last, Eli broke the quiet. You should sleep, he said softly. I can't. Because you don't trust me. She hesitated. Because every time I close my eyes, I see soldiers, humans. He nodded slowly. I see them too. Their eyes met in the dim light. His full of guilt, hers full of grief. Between them lay the thin distance of two enemies who somehow shared the same pain. Before dawn, Eli packed what little gear he had. Ration bars, an energy cell, an old map. We move at first light, he said. They'll trace the patrol report and sweep this area. Where will we go? South tunnels. They lead to the freight yards. From there I can contact someone who owes me a ship pass. Nira touched the damp wall. These tunnels go for miles. If we're found inside, then we make sure we're not. She wanted to believe his confidence. But when he turned away, she saw how tight his shoulders were, how carefully he hid his fear. The tunnels below the city were colder than the rain above, metal dripping, echoes stretching for seconds. Their footsteps sounded too loud. Nira followed close behind him, holding a small lamp Eli had fixed from scraps. It hummed with weak yellow light. She whispered, How do you know this place? I helped build it, he said. Before the war, she frowned. You built the same world that hunted mine? Eli didn't answer. The echo of her words hung between them like fog. After an hour of walking, they reached a cross junction. The walls here were covered in old human warnings. Biohazard, restricted zone. Nira touched the paint. It flaked under her fingers. This is old. Pre-war, he said. No one comes down here anymore. Except us. He smiled faintly. Exactly. They stopped to rest near an abandoned control room. Eli pried open a locker, finding 2 dusty water flasks and a rusted blanket. He handed her 1 flask. Drink slow. Nira sipped, careful. It tastes like metal. It's clean enough. She looked at him, curiosity flickering through her exhaustion. When you fought in the war, did you ever see Illyrians up close? He leaned back against the wall. Once, a group of civilians in the mountains. I was ordered to report them, but I didn't. What did you do? I gave them my supplies and left. They probably didn't survive anyway. Nira stared at him, shocked. Why risk that? Because they looked like people, not enemies. She blinked, confused. But humans said we were monsters, he met her gaze. We believed it too long. Silence again. Only dripping water. For the first time, Nira felt a small warmth that had nothing to do with the heater or the lamp. Hours later, a faint vibration rolled through the floor, a deep metallic growl that made both of them freeze. Eli raised a hand. Stay quiet. The vibration grew. Lights flickered. A drone engine echoed through the tunnels, scanning beams slicing through the dark. Nira's pulse raced. They found us. Maybe not yet. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into a side passage just as a bright scanner beam swept past the main tunnel. They crouched behind a broken pipe, water dripping on their heads. The drone stopped whirring softly, scanning the area again. Nira's glowing skin pulsed brighter with fear. Eli whispered, Dim it. I can't. When I'm scared, it gets stronger. He looked around desperately. His eyes landed on a barrel filled with dirty water. He splashed some over her arms and shoulders. The grime dulled the glow. The drone's beam passed once more and moved on. They waited a full minute before breathing again. Nira whispered, "You keep saving me." Eli exhaled, voice low. "Maybe I'm saving myself too." When the danger passed, they followed the tunnel farther south until the walls opened into a vast underground chamber, an old water treatment plant. Giant tanks rose around them, half full of still dark water. Broken lights blinked like dying stars. Nira stepped closer to one tank, staring at her reflection. "Do you ever wonder," she said softly, "what would have happened if our worlds had stayed friends?" Eli joined her side. "We might have built something beautiful." She looked at him, eyes shining faintly. "Maybe we still can." Her words hung in the damp air. Eli didn't answer, but a small, honest smile crossed his face, the first she had seen. They found an office at the far end of the chamber. The walls were cracked, but a small power terminal still worked. Eli rewired it, bringing a dim orange glow to the room. "This will be safe for a while." Nira looked around. "It feels peaceful." "Don't get used to it," he said, though his tone was gentle. She sat on the floor, wrapping the blanket around herself. "When you talk like that, you sound like my father." He chuckled softly. "That's a first. No one's ever called me fatherly." "What was he like?" he asked after a pause. She smiled faintly. "Kind, too kind. He believed humans would never hurt us. He said the sky would always be shared." Her smile faded. "He died still believing that." Eli lowered his eyes. "Then he was a better man than most of us." She studied him for a long time. "You feel guilty." "I should. But guilt doesn't fix what's broken." He looked up, surprised by her calmness. "Then what does?" "Maybe forgiveness." Eli laughed quietly. "You think I deserve that?" "Not yet," she said. "But you're trying." He didn't know how to answer. The warmth of her words lingered longer than the sound of them. They shared the ration bars. Nira chewed slowly, wincing at the taste. Eli watched her curiously. "Not good?" "It's like eating metal dust," he grinned. "Welcome to human cuisine." She laughed softly, a sound so gentle it almost didn't belong in a place built of concrete and war. For a moment, Eli forgot the soldiers, the drones, the guilt. He just saw her, a woman who had lost everything yet could still laugh in the dark. The rest was quiet until distant thunder rolled again, shaking dust from the ceiling. Nira looked up nervously. "That's not the storm. That's engines." Eli moved to the window slit. "Patrol hovercrafts. They're closing the district." She stood fast. "Then we're trapped." He shook his head. "Not yet. There's another exit, through the drainage shafts. It leads to the old freight bridge. Too dangerous. Everything's dangerous." He packed their things quickly. "We move now." As they stepped back into the tunnels, the noise of the patrols grew louder. Red search beams crawled across the walls like hunting snakes. Eli grabbed her hand again. They ran, metal clanged under their boots. Nira's breath came fast. Ahead, the tunnel split in two. Eli pointed left. "This way." They turned and froze. At the far end stood a squad of soldiers, their lights already on them. "Hands up." One shouted. Nira gasped. Eli pushed her behind him. "Run!" She didn't. "They'll kill you!"
"Run, Nira!"
Blaster fire tore through the tunnel. Eli fired back with an old sidearm he'd kept hidden. Sparks burst everywhere. Nira covered her ears, shaking. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. A bullet grazed Eli's arm. He fell, gritting his teeth. The soldiers advanced. Something inside Nira broke. The fear, the memories, the years of running, it all erupted. Her glow blazed brighter than ever, flooding the tunnel with blue light. Water from the pipes burst, spraying like rain. The air shimmered. The soldiers shouted in confusion. Their scanners overloaded, visors flashing white. Eli looked up in shock. Nira stood in the center of the storm, eyes glowing like stars. "Stop," he shouted. "You'll kill yourself." She raised her hands. The water twisted around her like ribbons, crashing into the soldiers and knocking them down. In seconds, the tunnel was filled with steam. When it cleared, the soldiers lay unconscious. Nira fell to her knees, shaking. Her glow dimmed back to faint blue. Eli rushed to her side. "Nira, hey, look at me." Her eyes fluttered. "I didn't know I could." "You saved us," she managed a weak smile. "Maybe we're even now." He laughed softly, helping her stand. "Not even close." They escaped through a side hatch, emerging into the cold night air outside the city. The rain had stopped, replaced by fog. In the distance, patrol lights swept across the skyline. Eli wrapped his coat around her shoulders. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. Tired, but alive. He looked back at the tunnel they'd come from. "You just took out a full patrol. They'll hunt us harder now." Neera's eyes met his. "Then we keep moving." He smiled faintly. "You really are something." She tilted her head. "You say that like it's a good thing." "It is." They walked into the fog together. Side by side, a human and an alien bound by something stronger than fear. Above them, dawn began to break, pale and uncertain. The city behind them glowed faintly under the clouds, unaware that two fugitives had just changed the story of their war.